Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin' Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
Yeah, man, I'm liking the new crib.
Who's breathing hard?
It's coming together.
That's Sheffy. That's you.
I am not your...
Or is it you?
You don't even know who you are, Simba.
I thought it was you for a long time.
I thought it was you, too.
Yeah.
It's Trey and his... he thinks he's still on the CPAP machine. Comes in here.
What? I got the marks.
Yeah.
You got your straps up today? Are your straps up?
Nice straps.
Are your straps up?
I don't get much of a mark.
That's why
I might get one line, but
he's got
I think yours
beard.
is too tight. You must have an old mask. You got
Do you have the full thing?
I got the full thing. I got the fighter
The
pilot.
Bane mask.
Oh, I just have the two up my nose.
Roar.
Is yours a full mask?
Yeah, dude. All the way, man.
Man.
Come on.
Stuff I never thought I'd talk about.
I know, dude.
Are we
Sad.
recording?
Yeah, we are. After my open heart surgery 4 years ago, I couldn't sleep on my back. I couldn't sleep on my side. I had to be on my back the full time. So Donna rented me this huge lift chair, and we put it right in the living room in front of the TV. Mm-hmm. Perfect timing at Christmas with the bowl games and the NFL playoffs, all that stuff.
And she waited on you hand and foot?
Waited on me hand and foot. I had the what
she rub your feet?
Nah, I don't know. I'm not a foot rub guy. I don't like to be rubbed. It's not me, dude.
Oh, okay.
It's not me.
Well, I'll take any rubbing I can get.
Okay. But I digress because I'm on this chair for a month and I look like crap. I have a beard and just shot to heck. And for relief, I wore one of those airplane donut pillows right around here. I had the ugly red heart pillow that you put against your chest, and all that, because that was a lifesaver. And then I had my CPAP on, and one night she's walking by, and I said, "Honey," and she said, "What?" And I said, "Do you still find me attractive?" No. And she rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, you know her. It's like, I want you well now."
That was an answer right there.
That was a month of that. But CPAP.
I finally figured out what God's name is.
What's that?
It's Howard.
Howard what?
That's his name. God's name.
Howard be thy name.
Yeah.
Howard
Our
be...
Father who art in heaven, Howard be your
Howard.
name.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice spin from the Mount of the Beatitudes.
So when you pray, do you say Howard?
Dude, talk into that thing up
Yeah, dude.
front. There you go.
I was
You like your
breathing
Howard?
I was saying, then he goes, I was breathing. I was doing that.
I was listening to the station the other day out in the middle of nowhere. 95 something, 95.1, The Rock. 95.1. It was like, oh man, that guy's cool.
Good voice.
How many DJs do we have like that today?
Not many.
And I remember growing up listening, I don't know if I was listening to him or like the repeats of like his old shows, but Wolfman Jack.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was one of them.
And I remember my parents, if they caught me, they'd make me turn it off. But like, at night I listened to radio as a kid, so I'd sneak it back on.
He was racy back in the day. Today he's tame.
I was listening to a podcast this week. It's a sports podcast, and they had this coach on there, and he was talking about the quarterbacks, how much they get paid. And he goes, these quarterbacks are getting paid an exorbitant amount of money. He meant to say an exorbitant amount of money, but he said an exorbitant amount of money.
It's an exorbitant. Okay, I just connected the dots. Obviously, that's my language too.
I love
county education.
I love hearing coaches and athletes talk
about how exorbitant.
Because if they
things
talk more than 10 seconds, they're going to say something stupid.
They do.
Yeah.
Most of the time they do.
I heard this one guy say, "You're damned if you do, damned if you're not." I mean, I've got a whole list of them, man. I write them down.
That's a Yogi Berra thing. Remember how Yogi Berra always got it wrong? It ain't over till it's over, or some of the little sayings.
My boss used to come up. We got a he was the office manager. He's since retired, but we got 2 pages of his stuff just like that. One of them used to say is going to hell in a hand cart.
Hand cart. Yeah.
We've got a whole 2-page list of them. Man.
So good.
Yeah.
Just don't quite get it right.
Yep.
It's like when you're trying to sing a song, you don't quite get the lyrics right, and someone that knows the song by heart, they're going, "Dude, you just."
Like some of Elton John's songs, man. I didn't know some of those lyrics were what they were until I actually, you look at it. Oh, that's what he's saying.
Okay, fill in this. Rocket Man.
I don't know what that is.
I
don't know what that is.
I don't either. I gotta look it up.
That's one of them I was talking about.
Yeah. What about blinded by the light, wrapped up like a
deuce.
runner in the night? I have no clue what that is.
It's a deuce. It's like a card reference or something. It's something stupid. I hated that song.
You did.
Yeah. But same thing like with Van Halen, I couldn't understand half the words.
Yeah.
And if somebody remade the song and they sang it clearly, I'm like, oh, that's what they're saying. Because David Lee Roth is all, you couldn't tell what he's saying. But the music was cool, you know?
People were buying it.
Hopefully y'all can all understand what we're saying.
One of the
today.
local radio stations does that. They have the guess like the real words.
Oh, that'd be
that's
cool.
cool.
I haven't heard that
Yeah,
one.
it's one of the. I forget which one.
That'd be cool. Listen to us.
Same one that has the phone tap.
Listen to us criticizing and grading some of the best-selling artists of all time.
Hey, that's what we do.
What we do.
Well, I mean, there's a whole generation that thought it was a douche in the night. So
I don't know what a douche in the night is. That's crazy.
Pastor likes Foreigner, man. That was cool.
That was a cool
That's a cool
message.
song,
He
though.
liked Foreigner,
I want to know
yeah.
what love
I
is.
wanna
That's
know-
a great
He,
tune.
he likes some good music.
Yeah, he does.
He's a big
man.
U2 fan. He likes a lot of the 80s rock.
He sure does.
So
He's a country boy from Tennessee.
I know.
That's crazy.
Union City. But guys, it's crazy how we're sitting here criticizing some famous artists, Grammy Award winning, multi-platinum selling artists. How much do we criticize our church? How much do we walk out of a church with a consumeristic mindset? And you hear it almost every week. Hey, did you go to church today? Yeah, I did. How was the pastor's message? Well, he really wasn't talking to me today. Didn't get much out of that today. And where are we, man? When we're going to church to get to grade something.
Well, I think we got to talk about like why do we even do it to begin with?
Good
Like
point.
what started consumer Christianity? Like the thought process behind it. You know.
Well, we're consumers in every other area of our life. We choose things based on how they look and how well they function and all that. So I think we find ourselves applying that to churches as well.
Yeah.
Because we're so pampered, our society. We have everything we want. So why not? With the church, let's go find the place where the music's right, the lighting's right, the pastor's funny, all that.
They got decent child care, and I want to drop my kids off, get away from them for a while, so I got an instant babysitter, or man, there's coffee and donuts with sprinkles.
Yeah.
Where are we, man? Where are we that we actually set up churches and curriculums and programs and things just to make sure that people don't leave or people are I'm walking a line here. I want people to feel great when they walk into the doors of a church, but
Sure.
at the same time, when is the message of Jesus just enough?
Right.
And it's not about the peripherals.
I think that's the issue. We think that Jesus is preaching a message of comfort. It's not necessarily the biblical truth. Isn't that it's comfort, right? It's
Right.
that it's what does God want us to do, and sometimes that isn't comfortable, and it's not comfortable to hear.
Right.
You go to some of these churches and they kind of just brush over the big topics, whatever that might be, and they push them to the side just to keep the consumer, their church body
Right.
happy. But nowhere in the Bible does Christ say, "Hey, following me is going to be a simple task, and the world's going to love you for it."
Right.
Or you're going to like what you hear. That's not it at all. I mean,
Right.
God never spared the rod, neither did Jesus. I mean, so why do we think our church should not preach that message as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's fault on both sides because a lot of churches are catering to people. They're like, well, what audience do we want to draw?
That's where I want to go. That's awesome.
So the church is marketing itself, and they're saying, hey, we got a contemporary service, we got a traditional service.
We got Brad on the guitar.
Like, come on in, either way. And so they're promoting themselves that way, and so we as the audience, we're coming in and going, okay, well, they've got this for me. I like
Right.
this service better than the other service, so I'm going
Yeah.
to come to that. But yeah, it's a kind of a mess on both ends. But we do keep the main thing. So what drew you to the church where you are now?
People.
The people.
Yeah, I walked through the door of our church now with Donna right before we got married, and I moved here, and I walked in and immediately just felt this welcoming atmosphere, and I came in with pretty strong Christian type convictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've matured the past 9 years since I met Donna in even bigger and better ways, I think. And but for some reason, I just like the feel, and whether the pastor flubbed up a message or quoted something wrong or whatever, I didn't even care about that.
Right.
I just felt it. And I was sitting in a meeting not too long ago where someone asked why do you come to our church, and I said because of the people, and someone else said, well, and because of Jesus too, and I said no, I bring Jesus in when I walk through
That's
the door.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a building. Jesus lives inside of us, and you know, oh, okay, and put a few more sprinkles on those donuts type thing. But it just you see it, you read about it, oh man, Jesus was this way back then, and he hasn't changed a bit, but the church has changed so much. And it's always lively conversation to talk about this consumerism type motif that we have.
Right. So, if you've got 4 or 5 churches that you're considering, and all of them preach the gospel, then how do you decide?
That's a great question.
It's like Michelle and I visited a few churches before we started coming to Cav, and it felt like home. The people, and
exactly.
I didn't go there for the building because, like you said, Jesus was a part of me, and I was bringing him in. But at that point in my life, it was I needed that refreshing. I needed that surrounding of Christians that are going to put their arms around me, and then I ended up finding it at the men's breakfast, and from then on it was game on, so
there's a book out there that addresses what you just said. Say you've got 4 churches. There's a book that I read. It's a fascinating read. Matt McMillan put me onto it earlier this year. It's called A Church Building Every Half Mile.
Oh yeah, you talked about that.
And it's written by this guy out of Vero Beach down south of us. And it talked about, and I'll get the author's name and figure it out later, but he talked about moving there for the first time. Some people said, oh, you should come to church with us. We go to this certain church denomination. Oh, that's our denomination. That's fantastic. And they picked him up at their house, and he and his wife were riding in the car, and they drove by 7 churches of the same denomination and drove like 8 miles to get to same denomination, but to get to a church 8 miles away, and there was a church of their denomination, quote unquote, within a half mile of their house.
Wow.
And he just said that we keep going. There's another one. Are we going to stop at this one? Are we going to? And it was all about, and there was a story. Well, that pastor does this, and their music's not that good, and this is and it just hit me. I'm like, God, that's what I do.
I'm just wondering, like, I'm trying to think, like, because we honestly didn't view a lot of churches. We kind of went to Cav and found our spot. Like,
right.
I mean, that's just how it happened for us. But, I think it's interesting because you guys talk about the people, but I think that's because your spirits found that place that found comfort, right? Because at the end of the day,
have a point on that. Yeah,
the church isn't a building anyway. So, like, when you say you're choosing a church, you're actually choosing a group of people that you want to sing, worship, praise, and fellowship with, right? So, I don't know, maybe that's something to do with it.
Yeah, I think from that, I think a lot of it is the attitude that you have when you choose a church. We were part of a smaller church, and our family was involved in leadership and the worship and all that. So for like 7 years, we were really heavily involved with this church and our kids.
Down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were some things that happened. We felt like the leadership and the direction of the church was changing, but we didn't want to just bolt because we didn't like what we saw. We stayed there for a year longer than we wanted to, because we wanted to make sure that our hearts were right. We prayed about it and just kept praying, and like, why are we still here? And then all at once we felt like there was a release from God to say, okay, go. You can leave and find another church now. And even then we went and talked to the pastor. I think leaving well is a big thing, but we've always taken that, like our membership pretty seriously, and like, what is our motivation for being at this church? Is it because it's too loud? I mean, we take that kind of stuff seriously. So I think the attitude that you have when you're choosing a church or when you're leaving a church is a big deal. And I think a lot of people they're very flippant about it. It's like going to a restaurant, like, well, we didn't like that last week, so we're going to go somewhere else.
You walk into a door with expectations of what you're going to get out of it.
Well, that's the definition of consumerism, right? It's like, what am I getting out of church versus what is, what am I?
I just want to be fed. I've heard that. So I just want to be fed. And my question is, okay, so when you walk through that door, are you going in with this "what's in it for me" attitude, or are you walking in that door with a servant's heart?
I think too many people are Sunday morning Christians, and so they don't do enough during the week. They're not reading the Word. They're not immersing themselves in worship music. They think Sunday is going to check the box for them, and they're going to be fine. So everything kind of relies on that service and how they feel about it. If I'm reading the Word every day and I'm praying, when Sunday comes, I can't wait to get there because I want to worship with my brothers and sisters, and I want to see you guys, and like the Spirit in me reacts to the Spirit in you. And so for me, it's like I'm coming to give, to worship, and I might receive some teaching in the process, but that's not my one meal of the week. I'm eating throughout the week, so it's not all based on that 1 hour on Sunday. And some people it is. So if they didn't like the song or if they didn't like the message, they're like, well, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's interesting because you're here to serve the Lord and your brothers and sisters, not to be served by the Lord and your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I think there's some give and take there.
Well, yeah.
But the consumer mentality is, what am I getting? What are they going to do for me today? And if I feel like I didn't get that, then I may want to find another church.
Well, I've said this before. Serving in the church is like a football game. You got 22 people in dire need of rest being watched by 90,000 that need exercise, and it's like you see the same people doing the same things in a body like that.
In today's society, I mean, think about it. We have Uber Eats. So if I want to sit at my house and you want to have Papa John's and you want to have Burger King, you want to have Taco Bell, and I want to have a steak from Ruth Chris, we can all four have the same thing at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or our own meals. I mean, my kids even, many times if they don't like what we have for dinner, what do? We just fix another dinner, right?
Right.
We're in a position to do that, right? But that's the society we live in. So we translate that into every aspect of our life, including our faith in God. And we try to make God into this box that God is in our image, we're not in his. And that ends up being the thing that we're trying to shift around.
Come on, you're right.
Because his whole message is that none should perish.
Correct.
So what are we doing? And I brought this up at group tonight. When's the last time you shared the gospel with somebody? And I'm guilty of that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's our ultimate goal. But we've gotten so afraid in this society that, we can't bring up Jesus. And we're the Christians are getting the crap beat on them on social media and in the news. And it's like, it's okay to, and I think that brings fear where people are like, oh no, I'm not going to share the gospel because I'm going to get the crap beat out of me.
It's funny. I was telling Trey yesterday, we're at the fuel meeting there in Vieira, and afterwards I was telling him, I started driving around my golf cart. I don't know if you know this, but I have a huge speaker on my golf cart.
You got
one? Obnoxious is probably the best way to put it. But I've been actually ironically playing Zach Williams music on it. I just love starting my day out with it, and Rescue Story and all these, like, all the powerful ones. I kind of have them in a list. And on the way to school, my boys and I sing and kind of do on the way to school, and then on the way home I do the same thing. You'd be surprised how many times people, just yesterday, literally a guy stopped me. He was like, hey, and I couldn't hear him because it was too loud, but I know what he was saying was I love that song, because he was smiling, giving me a thumbs up. So did he like the song or like the golf cart, or
maybe
he was delusional? I don't know, but
it's okay, big guy.
I'm just saying, I've been doing that just to get
you.
He had his wife with him, so I'm gonna take it to that.
How do we change that consumerism mentality?
I don't know. I keep just going back. I get so inspired when I read the stories in the book of Acts about how the church started spreading. I don't know. I just keep going back to that. The realization of the power of the Holy Spirit in Acts chapter 2. The travels of Paul, the travels of Peter, how they were near death, and they were told, okay, we're going to let you go this time, but don't ever say another word about it. And they walk across the street and get on the bullhorn and start going again, And then I think about their sit-downs with people. And I don't know, that kind of grounds me that's the church. Like you said, the people that just rely on a 30-minute sermon. And I got a confession to make, all right? I got a confession to make. When I first moved here, I struggled some with the music at our church.
Yeah, because it wasn't a guitar.
Come on.
Easy. We did that last time.
He wanted an organ and a hymn book.
That's exactly right.
It was too rocking for you.
I walked in, and it was just so much of a production and everything. I had trouble with it, and I never forget. There were many, many times, and this is my confession, so anybody from that church is listening, don't blame me. Don't judge me. I remember looking at Donna going, his sermon starts about 24 minutes and 12 seconds after the doors open. So let's get there at 22 minutes
Ooh.
and 10 seconds and listen to the sermon, and then we'll bust out halfway through the final song so we can beat the crowds and get to breakfast.
Wow.
I'm just laughing at you because I'm sitting here thinking I went to the movie theater yesterday. I didn't go to the movies, but we were talking about renting a theater for the kids. And I was like, so can we skip the credits?
Oh, man.
And can we skip the
previews?
the previews?
So it's 15 minutes.
I know.
So we'll show the movie starts at 7. We're showing up at 7:30 because we know we're going to skip all the previews.
There's commercials in there now and everything. It's bad.
So you're treating
Yeah,
church like
for
that.
about a year, and then I was convicted though, and I was convicted by I actually went on time, and I was convicted by a beautiful woman we all know that sang "What a Powerful Name It Is," and I wept during that song, and from that day forward, I'm always early.
Yeah,
And it just hit me.
So was it like a light bulb moment?
It was
Okay.
a light bulb moment. Like,
Wow.
wait a minute, I'm coming just to listen to a couple of words in a sermon and walk out and say, but, and that was only 8 years ago.
So it's funny you say that's the one thing I keep. My wife and I, we're just in time people a lot of times. I'm not going to say whose fault it
Just in
is,
time, people.
but and sometimes just in time is fashionably late. But I think a lot of people forget that's the big part of church that we don't take advantage of too. Like, is the fellowship aspect before
In the
and
lobby.
after.
Right.
Like that's supposed to be part of it. Like the service is one thing, but like we're called to fellowship with each other too.
Right.
So, and I think that's maybe why you guys fell in love with the church. I don't know, but like, is that fellowship before and after? The service is great either way, but like, it's that the people are the church, right? Like, not the other way.
Just with our ministry, we pride ourselves in our motto is one man at a time, right? Yet, I went to an event a couple of weeks ago where I had a guy that's with another church organization in our area, and we went out evangelizing last night, and 10 people came to Christ, and I'm going, oh man, I'm behind. And then you see somebody more famous saying tens of thousands came to Christ last night, and then their website says over 1 million souls saved through our ministry, and I'm going,
Sounds
okay,
like the
is it
billboard on the
about
outside of McDonald's?
It sounds like Dan Newland or Morgan and Morgan. Dan got me $450,000 today. Yeah. Where do we go?
Like for
Over
me,
22 billion served at McDonald's. On
There
the
you
outside of the
go.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Where
that's
are we?
exactly when you start treating church like a consumeristic society. It's like, all right, so how many souls did we save? Yeah, absolutely, save 1 million souls. That would be great, right? But I just wonder sometimes, to me, purely my opinion, just putting it out there, the one man at a time, and maybe that's why I identify with Impact. I like it so much. Man, that's what I like about CAB. We do a lot of the small groups, and we do the one-on-one sessions, and we do the coaching sessions, and before you get baptized, like you have to go through a whole conversation, and that's, to me, that intimate approach to it is what we were called to do, right? Now, don't get me wrong, preaching on the hillside, Jesus did it, and he did it to touch as many people as possible, but, that brought them in to have that one-on-one approach where we really should have that piece, right? That's when you make the real impact. So, yeah, it's great if 10 people raise their hand in a church service or in a, standing on the sidewalk, but did they walk away after they did, or 10,000 people? You see these big, like, you see these things overseas where they got all these people just walking in the ocean left, right, and center, and it's like 1,000, 1,500 people got saved in an afternoon. But then what happened to them, right? Did they really get saved? Did they understand what they're actually saying, or were they just caught up in the moment and that thing?
Yeah.
So I just be careful when you think about it. Like, to you specifically, Trey, is like, impact's making an impact, right? Like, not in a, I don't mean it to be like that, but my point is, like, that you're making a true impact, like, it. But if you start doing the scoreboard and the works thing, and okay, well, my church has got 100,000 people
so much.
I mean, that, who cares? God doesn't. He's not measuring you on that.
Yeah, I think I used the analogy yesterday. The day I die, I'm up at the pearly gates, and there's Peter going.
You did,
Got the okay, Trey. How many? All right, the last guy that was in here had 40, and you know what? There's a few instances of that in Scripture. Right after the Pentecost and, the Holy Spirit, they're speaking the languages. Peter gets up on that rock outside of the walls of Jerusalem. We actually sat there where they believe it happened, and became the man with the giving the gospel, and it says, and 3,000 people that day. All right, that was a big moment, you know. But at the same time, Jesus sent out. Remember when he sent them out two by two? The impact they had with 2 people with 5, or 2 people with 8, or 2 people with 1 was just as dramatic as the 3,000. And I don't know. I just feel I'm such a man. Keeping the score is big to me.
Sure.
There's a scoreboard up there, and the time expires, and there's this ministry did 1 million souls saved, and this ministry did 500. I'm thinking, dude, it's only the first quarter, and the game's over already. I got to catch up. What am I going to do to get to a million? And that might be some of the mentality of the churches today. Of, oh man, I went to visit his church. It was huge. I want my church to be that big. And where do you go from there? Do you create the programs to draw them in? All of a sudden, a consumeristic mindset hits in.
As long as they're speaking truth and teaching people the truth, there's nothing.
Right.
There's no issue with that, right? But if you're starting to make the truth into what the consumer wants in order to help save them, don't get me wrong. You can't walk up day one to a non-believer and throw them hit them with the Bible and be like, "Hey, these are all the rules that you're f***ing up." By the way, like that yeah, see ya. But at the same time, you still got to put that truth in them, you know. But I do think a lot of churches they're messing up, just my opinion. But it's all in good intention.
Yeah,
I do believe that. But they also say that the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So we need to be careful and call each other out on that.
And how healthy is a church body where you have a bunch of disgruntled parishioners that take off and start their own church based on the fact that they weren't happy with what was going on? So now you've got another. So is there healing in that? Did they, you know?
That's a great question.
They went off and started their own with all the other people that were pissed off. I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? What's our purpose? It's to bring the gospel to people that don't know Jesus as their personal savior. That's our goal.
Right.
Not to have coffee, donuts,
Sure.
you know, rock and, you know, love our music, bro. But
Yeah, no, all that stuff is gravy. I think from the people standpoint, from the church's standpoint, you keep the main thing the main thing. Church needs to be preaching the word. You know, the sermons need to be biblically based, and the worship. You know, we use this buzzword authentic, but you know, the focus needs to be God. All the other stuff is gravy. You can have lights and smoke and all that. That's fine. But if you have a church and you're starting with we need lights and smoke, and the gospel is further down the line in importance, that's not right. You're screwing it up. And the same thing from a member standpoint. If I go and I say they got lights and smoke, I like this place, and like the gospel in whether the word is preached, if that's like further down on my list, then that's messed up. So I think from the church and from the member standpoint, if the main thing is that Christ is preached.
yeah, and you said preaching the word, you know, in a lot of churches, in fact, you know, they dabble in the law, try and keep the law, you know, speak the law, and then they're, you know, in the New Testament. It's like, are we New Covenant or Old Covenant? Are we dabbling in the Old Covenant or in the New Covenant? It's like, keep the message according to the word. And Jesus' whole point was, this is a new covenant in my blood, and not go back and dabble into the law again.
Well, and we've all seen some of these mega churches that really it's like a pep talk, or it's like a TED talk with a little bit of scripture sprinkled in, instead of basing it on scripture. And some of these guys won't even say that Jesus is the only way to the Father.
Right.
There's some of these guys they won't say it, and so to me that's a big red flag. But they have hundreds of thousands of members that attend their church and listen to them. So the word's got to be the main thing. God's got to be the main thing. Everything else is gravy.
You know, you mentioned, you know, you're thinking about planting a church, and okay, let's start with the smoke and the lights. It reminds me of probably one of your favorite movies. Remember the last words of the movie? Dad, do you want to have a catch?
Oh yeah.
You know, and but the whole thing was, if you build it, they will come. Remember?
That's right.
Field of Dreams.
So why don't we have if we speak Jesus, they will come one at a time.
Yeah.
And it's not about building a building and they come to it. It's about what resonates through that building.
And you were at a church a couple of weeks ago that was very small, very unassuming, one or two musicians, and you said it was some of the most powerful worship you'd experienced.
It was. And, a great little church down in the south part of our county. Our buddy was preaching, so I went to go support him and his wife and family. And I love that pastor, and I walked out of there just totally I don't want to say I walked out of there and I got something, but I was in there and I felt something bigger than me.
Yeah.
And it was just the right moment, and maybe I needed that day, just a small town feel with the lady sitting there bragging about the brand new apple muffins that she had just baked for people to eat when they walked in, and she had banana bread and apple muffins and bran muffins, and she spent all night baking just for the people that came that day.
That's
and
cool.
I was like, this is cool. This kind of reminds me of growing up.
Yeah.
And took me back in time. So
Yeah, so God can work through that. He can work through. He can work through one dude with a guitar or a lady on a piano. That could be like the most powerful worship you've ever had, as opposed to a giant band and big lights and smoke. Which, again, nothing wrong with those things. It's all about what's the intent, what's the heart, what's the focus.
So we have people listening to us. They're here today. Like, if we're sitting there having this conversation and with somebody that maybe hasn't chosen a church before, they're new to this game, right? How do you guide them into choosing their church? Like, how do you teach them? Like, I was an atheist yesterday, and today I want to know about Christ. Like, how do I choose a church?
You know what? I think we're going to be having lunch with somebody that experienced that this last week. So now, what are we going to tell him?
Yeah,
and
I'd bring him to our church because I know the people, I know the pastor,
right.
I know the hearts of the people on the worship team, and it's solid.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so what do you tell him? Like, you bring him to your church, and then he's like, "Well, just choose my church because I believe in it." Like,
I would expose him to it. Yeah. I would expose it to him and say, "This is what I like about this church. If you want to find another one, you can, but just make sure they're preaching the word and that they're not getting off on some tangent." Right. But I can tell you, this is the heart of this church because this is where I've been for years.
Grace is preached.
Yeah.
Would you ask him a question like, "Okay, Johnny, what's your heart telling you right now that you need, or that you'd like to see?" You might be staring at a blank canvas right now. All right. So what's this picture painting? How do you want this painting to look? Do you want to walk through those doors of that church to learn and grow? Do you want to walk through that church to be entertained and mesmerized? Do you want to walk through that church going, "I love these people. I want to walk alongside of them"? And that's kind of where I kind of direct conversations, because the people aspect for me is what stirs me the most.
Yeah.
And then if I get a great message from the stage, that's icing on the cake.
Sure.
Oh, and then the small groups. We have such a wonderful small group.
Small groups are important.
Like-minded, and that's what I love. We don't do Sunday school on Sundays, but we do. Everybody has a small group during the week, which is powerful for me.
Yeah. I don't know. What would you say?
What's that?
The person that wants to come in, just come to my church, and there's some questions we never ask people of. Okay, the guy said it in this other office the other day. I was an atheist until 10 days ago, and he's looking at me like, "Now what?" And my first word was, "Well, weekly, you and we're going to sit here, and I'd like to go through the Bible in light of our redemption. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who you are and what it just means for you just to say that you believe in Jesus. Now, where's the best place for you to grow? Where's the best place for you to expound and grow in the knowledge of this, and the best place that other people, when you walk through the door, they need you, and you need them." So we'll see how this journey goes with this guy.
Yeah.
That's when we all met our wives. What was it appealing about? That's the same thing. You're going to know that when you feel that, and you're going to see it, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to know this is a good fit for me.
Well, guys, great convo again this week. Guys that are watching, gals that are watching and listening, we just want you to tune in. Click on us, follow us on social media, follow us on this YouTube, and like us, and then just share. We try to reach men 1 minute at a time, and you can help us share that message to reach one man today in some capacity. So just give us a click, give us a like. Go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. It's on the bottom of every page of our website to subscribe. MPACTministries.org, MPACTministries.org. And when you do that right now, the first thing that's going to pop out is our Break the Chains Through Grace experience with Zach Williams, September the 9th. We're looking for a few final sponsors and people that just want to help support and offset the cost. There's some links for you to help there. Also, just to go buy tickets. We are selling tickets. Most of the lower level is sold out. The first 8 or 9 rows are gone. We want you to join us for the celebration. So, 2-time Grammy Award winner Zach Williams, his message is our ministry at Impact of overcoming and healing through the love of Christ. Also, like I said, our Facebook, social media with Instagram. Just give us a click, a like, and a share. Doesn't cost a dime. But if you do want to donate and help us out, help us with this podcast and other things, just click the donate button. You can.
Cool.
We cool?
1 minute.
All good.
You got to get back to work. You got to get somewhere, and you and I are going to go grub out at Kreiderman's down the street. Let's close out. I'm Trey.
I'm Michael.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Jeremy.
We are the
Cousin Christians.
Chocolate-covered donuts or cream-filled?
Cream-filled.
Chocolate covered.
Ooh.
I like the
Like
cream-filled.
the Boston cream.
The ones at the golf
Chocolate
alley. You didn't play in the
cream.
golf alley. Oh, those donuts. I don't know where they
Those
got
donuts
them
were
from.
great.
Where'd they get them from?
I can't remember. Oh, no, Krispy Kreme.
You don't get the 350 without knowing the Krispy Kreme at Bubba. Let me tell you.
You got to put some work in to get up to 350, dude. You put in the work, dude. That's impressive.
In a lot of ways.
Love y'all. We're out.